It's the Worth Knowing live stream. I'm Matt Robison, and today, failure and hope. We're seeing immense, painful failure right now. And the question is, do we have reason to hope? Are we about to see the turn of the tide? The failure of the moment is, of course, President Trump's war with Iran. When Trump announced over the weekend that a peace deal had been struck, markets reacted immediately and positively, but likely prematurely, because the peace deal is on double secret probation. We're not allowed to know exactly what's in it until Friday, but based on what we do know from substantial media reports, this deal is a complete and utter surrender. Iran is getting an initial $24 billion in funds, plus $300 billion in reconstruction money, plus the long-term ability to impose tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, plus no real restrictions on their nuclear program. The U.S. is getting nothing. And that true cost, that's something I'm writing about on my Substack for tomorrow. So I hope people will subscribe to follow that. But trust me, when I say the true cost is shatteringly and shockingly higher. And all of this is, of course, only one failure, one cost. We've devoted significant time on this show to talking about the many costs of having this particular president. I had the authors Ann Kim and Ira Shapiro on this show 2 weeks ago talking about their book, summarizing the inputs of 45 bipartisan leaders from all sectors, tallying the true staggering impact of just Trump's second term. That's a bill that we're all paying. And it's because of a different kind of failure. The failure of Republicans to stop this cancer from eating their party from the inside, and the failure of Democrats to stop them from the outside, not once, but twice. Now, if there's hope for the short term, it comes in the form of the prospect that the midterms, now only 140 days away, will resurrect some guardrails, some control on an out of control and criminal presidency. Those prospects look good. And this week, I'm introducing a brand new product on my Substack that's going to succinctly, clearly, and honestly update the evidence on the fight for the midterms so people can know at a glance where we stand. So again, hope people will subscribe. Worth Knowing with Matt Robison. Check that out. But I also want to take a step back with our guest today, Melissa Amour, to look at the even larger picture. Because the backdrop of the failure to stop Trump is really the end of a larger project, the rise and now the fall of the political power of the baby boom generation. This week, John Harris wrote an essay in Politico talking about what he called the generational disaster of Trump, Bush, and Clinton. All three were born in 1946. Harris says their basic failure, their disaster, was the, quote, decades-long descent in which Americans had been progressively more tribalistic in their political affiliations, ever more coarse and insulting in public discourse, more mystified by and contemptuous of those who disagree, and less confident in the country's ability to reliably and rationally govern itself. In other words, Harris blames them for the birth of today's ultra-toxic political culture. And that may be fair, but it's only part of the story, because each of them also failed at what they set out ostensibly to do. Clinton campaigned as a new Democrat, promising a third way in American politics, and that the era of big government was over. But now, a quarter century after the end of his presidency, the Democratic Party is more confused about what that way is than ever before. We're more internally divided, and we can't mount a coherent explanation of what we really stand for. George W. Bush ran on promising a new kind of republicanism. He ran as a compassionate conservative. That lasted until 9/11 and his decision to exchange the almost universal unity and acclaim that he had in that moment for the cheaper political coin of partisan advantage. Along the way, his presidency expanded entitlements and ran up even greater debt by far than Clinton, and seemingly lost any moorings of what was either conservative or compassionate. Trump campaigned in 2016 as a disruptor, a change agent, and someone who correctly diagnosed the fundamental economic failing of the previous 40 years that had left so many Americans behind. I'm serious about this. I've written about it for Newsweek. It's hard for Democrats to hear. Believe me, it's hard for me to say out loud. But his diagnosis was fundamentally the same as Bernie Sanders' diagnosis, and it was fundamentally correct. But of course, he's a scam artist and a con man who didn't really believe any of it. He was just looking to gain flattery and power and personal wealth. The wreckage that he's left in his wake across 2 terms as president is strewn across the face of America. The point is that these presidents, and in fact, the entire baby boom generation that they represent, and that has held the apogee of American power for so long, have fundamentally failed on 2 counts, both in the political projects that they set out to achieve and in leaving our entire country's governance in a state of perpetual strife and catastrophe. So, where's the hope in all that? The hope is that we're seeing the end of it, that the people, the leaders who left us in this broken state, are beginning to exit the scene. That if we can begin the process of reining in Trump in the midterms, which the evidence suggests there's a strong chance we will succeed in doing, we'll then finish the job in 2028. And in the words of John F. Kennedy, pass the torch to a new generation of leaders. And the question is, where will they go with it? Is there something better up ahead as generations X, Y, and Z take the reins? Those are the questions that we want to tackle today, the failures of the last 10 years as a microcosm for the failures of the last 50 years and the page that we're about to turn. We're going to do that with our guest, Melissa Amour, author of The Inside Outsider. She's a ghostwriter who's written for some of the most interesting people in Never Trump world and writes about that experience and perspective on Substack. And who, by the way, just wrote a must-read autopsy of the Never Trump movement 10 years after its original failure, and who is now, as if that's not enough, launching a new Substack project called XYZ, Politics After the Boom, about the one urgent question: what does American politics look like when the people who have to live longest with the consequences finally get to shape it? Melissa, welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I want to get right to it. So you have the plan. I laid it out there for what I want to try to get to here. I want to start with
Yes.
the failures of the present, how that connects to the failures of the Never Trump movement, and also, let's be honest, my party and now your party, the Democrats, and
Yes.
then get to this bigger question, which is hopefully a hopeful question about generational change. Let's start with the Never Trumpers and your article, which I'm serious is really must read. It was an
Thank you.
absolutely fascinating retrospective on how the hell did we get here? What happened? Like all the cannons were lined up to try to stop this. This was the Republican Party. It was going to take care of its own, clean up
Mhm.
the mess. You laid out in jarring reminder detail what happened to the Never Trumpers. So just remind us what happened to all these gals and mostly guys. Like, why didn't they get this done?
That's an excellent question, Matt. I think that there's a few different reasons, right? And I laid them out in the piece. But I'm somebody who kind of came into Never Trump as a complete outsider. I worked in education communications for 25 years. And then I was just terrified about Trump taking over the party and stuff like that because I had been a moderate Republican and that I said, that's it. I'm going to get involved. I'm going to switch careers midlife and I'm going to get involved in this and really try and stop this. And the point of my piece was that everything we've tried to throw at it has not worked because clearly we've failed. We ended up with the worst possible scenario. Trump's in again. He survived all of the potential legal threats against him. And on top of that, his vice president used to be one of us. He was a never Trumper. So yeah, that can only be described as a failure. And it's a shame because there have been some small victories. There have been battles that have been won, but ultimately not the war. So how did we get here? Now, looking back in retrospect, I have some opinions on that. Like I think that having been someone in behind the scenes of this this whole movement, I guess you could call it, I think we got too comfortable. I don't want to say all of us, but I think some people just got too comfortable.
Was there a seminal moment? There was, I remember the debate process. Oh, good gravy. Like in my social media feed, I have some history is not kind. I watched that first debate where Trump was up on the stage, and the rest of them looked like a clown car as well. And I'm like, maybe I'm crazy here, but I'm finding this super entertaining. I remember Jon Stewart was doing the chef's kiss. This is great. This is going to be so remarkable. Was there a moment where you guys, I'm including you in this,
Okay.
like where you guys lost it? Was there like a, oh my gosh, this is escape lab containment here?
Yeah, I think for me, it was like Super Tuesday in 2016 when I think especially when he cleaned up in the South. I really expected the South to come through and see this guy as, he's just like some Yankees with a golden toilet and all of this, and really and come through and say, yeah, no, this is not the guy. And I think at that point when I saw, that's how far back this goes. When I saw that Super Tuesday win in 2016, I thought, oh, really in trouble. And then you had at that time, you had if people were dropping out like flies, and then you had Rubio held on for a little bit, and then you had Kasich was still hanging in there for a while. And I think the very last to go was Ted Cruz. And that was that. But I still thought that we were going to be able to stop him in November. I still thought, okay, we still have a shot. And then that didn't happen. And that's when it was clear that there was something really, and you alluded to this in your opening piece. He very clearly latched on to a real feeling, and we know this, right?
Yeah.
Among Americans. And
Right.
unlike what I would say Bernie Sanders being sincere about it and actually wanting to correct those errors, you had Trump do it as a populist, as a demagogue, and using that feeling, which he was able to just target and use it to create this massive movement for himself. So for me, that's long story short. Like to me, it was over almost before it began, even though Never Trump went on.
Do you mind personalizing this for just a little bit? Because here you are as
Yeah.
a moderate Republican. I used to work with a lot of these folks because this was my whole career as a congressional staffer. I worked exclusively for members of Congress and managing congressional races in swing districts, in contested territory, where I got along with Republicans because we would swap seats and jobs back and forth. And I still maintain a fairly robust text friendship with some of my Republican counterparts. So you and I were in similar, I guess, territory, maybe on
Yes.
slightly different sides of the party divide, but it wasn't that big a divide at the time. Did you have
No.
a personal moment where you're like, all right, I'm out?
May 3rd, 2016. Yeah, that was it.
What was that?
That was when Trump clinched the nomination for the Republican nomination. And I was like, this isn't my party anymore.
Hmm.
And then I actually wrote another piece earlier talking about my sort of transition from a moderate Republican to a moderate Democrat, and that it wasn't a big jump, quite right. I don't really have a lot of my opinions haven't changed all that drastically on things, which is interesting because then I'm like, oh, well, maybe I was a rhino. I just didn't realize it. But I think what it was is just that you had this transition of the party into something very different when you had the Tea Party come in, and it was a much more populist type Republican Party, and that really wasn't the party I signed on for. And so I think that it was actually a long time coming, and then it just was finally like, this is it. This isn't me anymore, if it ever was. And so yeah, that was the turning point for me.
But of course, it's like the parody of local news stations where they say the news just keeps on breaking. The failure just kept on failing in a way because the Never Trumpers, it seemed like it's like, okay, this one got away from us. Okay, our bad. You may have had a little something to do with it too, Democrats. Could have done better with your nominee. So there it is. But let's get this back. And there was this profusion of strong, never Trump organizations in this
Mhm.
2018, 29 time period. You cover this in your article as well. And most notable is the Lincoln Project. And Fred Wellman, by the way, former executive director, is a friend of mine, someone I've had on my show several times.
Mhm.
And we've gone over some of this painful territory together. But as the Cynthia Rice points out, the Never Trumpers, they're not exactly suffering in terms of their media projects. You point out in your article that the movement essentially left the political sphere and became a media movement. It became and a money-making venture in a way, but it didn't advance the cause at all. What happened there?
Yeah, so I think that and this was the frustration from a lot of us who worked in the background of the Never Trump movement, not the names that you know, but the people who worked in the background, because we would always grumble amongst each other that what is going on? We're not focused anymore on the mission. We've
Hmm.
lost the plot here. It's become just, I think it's Charlie Sykes who says we were a political failure, but we were a commercial success. You know what I mean? In the sense that Never Trump became almost like its own club. And I think I'm not putting anyone down. I'm not trying to target anybody with this. I think that everybody went into it everyone went in with good intentions to defeat Trump, because we saw early on what this was coming. But I think I saw Cynthia in the chat said it's become now it's like a money making. It's like we've gotten too comfortable. Now it's just like, that's interesting too. The views don't change so much. It's more just like you're just moving the
Yeah.
goalposts politically, I guess. So yeah, I just feel like we got comfortable with it and it became more like just a business. And like that's not
Mm, I'm going to, at the risk of being insufficiently self-critical as a Democrat, I'm going to turn the lens on the kind of center left for just a moment here in an attempt to be even-handed, but also to lay out, and I promise there's a question at the end of this for you,
okay.
very particularly, but it feels from the outside like some of what's happened is the kind of advocacy group capture that we see happen across different kinds of advocacy groups,
Yeah.
where if they achieve their mission or if their mission is somehow laid to the side, then they find that they're in a business and that emergency is better for business. You see it with a lot of environmental groups. You see it with advocacy groups that are essentially like the dog that catches the car.
Yes.
Now what? Now what? And you ramp it up. There's
Exactly.
been a tremendous amount of criticism. Some people may not go in for this, but I think that there's something to it from moderate Republicans like Andrew Sullivan, who is himself a gay man who was a major part of the marriage equality movement, saying,
Yeah.
look, the Human Rights Campaign lost the plot when we won legally. When we won full legal rights and equality for all flavors of personal identity, LGBTQ plus, then there was really the mission creep set in. That's his criticism, but I think it can be applied to all kinds of organizations and probably goes around the bend back to these kinds of groups, which brings me back
Agreed.
to your story. So you served as a ghostwriter for these people, these folks. What did you learn in the course of that from the inside?
So I think what's most interesting, and I actually talk about this in another one, not the piece I wrote on Ever Trump specifically, but on another one, is that, I think behind the scenes, people are a lot more scared than they seem sometimes.
Mm,
Like themselves are not always sure what to do. Like me personally, I always thought people who are in charge, they know what to do. We're going to fix this. We're going to come around. And that was why I got into this very idealistically, like I want to be one of the people that helps. And first the goal was let's get back the Republican Party. And then it's no, that's not going to happen. Then it was like we'll be independents, let's start a third party. And that didn't pan out. And then it's well, let's just become Democrats and vote for Democrats until all of this goes away. Now, I'm to the point now where I can't ever imagine being Republican again. To be honest with you, I still would like to see a decent Republican Party return because I think it's best for the whole country. I just don't know if it's where I would ever want to go ever again. But there's this sense of nobody knows what to do. And
mm,
again, I'm not insulting anyone. I'm not trying to put anyone down. I was part of the same movement, but it was just more of a frenzy of trying to figure out what to do and people not understanding. So I think that's for me one of the big things is that I think the intentions are good, but behind the scenes, a lot of people are just not necessarily knowing what the right thing to do is either. And then what happens is you have it's like anything. You have the egos take over. And
yeah.
I've been the brave voice all along. No, I've been the brave voice. And my path to this is the unique one. No, mine is. And look, I get it. Everybody wants to be the one who's running the show, I guess. But in the end, that sort of balkanized the movement because now you have all these individual organizations all vying to be the one that's going to fix democracy. And I know because I've been a part of a few of them. And like I've also been like, we are just not crushing it here. And it's very frustrating. So, I that's my take on it anyway, as someone who's been in the background of this.
That's really interesting about they're more scared on the inside than they are on the outside. I can affirm a couple of things. First, I can tell you that there are fewer political masterminds in this business than television and movies would make it seem. It's always a
Yes.
lot more interesting to do the House of Cards version of this, where someone
Hmm.
has thought like a chess master 17 moves ahead. There are extraordinarily talented people in this business, but I will
Of
tell
course.
you that I've worked with all kinds of members of Congress, and I've been around the top strategists, at least inside the Democratic Party. I've interviewed some of the top strategists in the Republican Party, and there's a lot less certainty about what to do. It's always easier to give retroactive analyses than to give prospective
It is.
forecasts and strategies. It is. And one of the principal things that your pollsters will do for you on a campaign is just come with confidence at you should do this. I have the numbers. See, look, I have a graph. This is the thing to do, because having a plan is better than no plan. So it's very interesting. I even heard it when I was on Bloomberg last week. The preceding interview before me was Nikki Haley, and they were asking her about the strategy in Iran. And I tried to be extremely polite on the air because that's my thing. So when they asked me what I thought of what she'd said, I said I defer to the ambassador and her vast expertise. However, her idea that the way forward with Iran was to put boots on the ground and seize Karg Island was nonsensical. And you could see that she's trying to walk this incredible line of she's an intelligent woman. Like, she knows that this is insane.
Yeah.
She wasn't born yesterday, but she's got a whole MAGA. If she ever wants to have a future career, she has a whole MAGA side that she has to satisfy. It's just an incredibly difficult line to walk. Speaking of hard lines to walk,
Extremely.
one of the things you point out in your piece is that it seems like what Republicans come up against, what people who are trying to cleanse the Republican Party of the pollution that it's fallen under, what they come up against time after time is Republicans who say, yeah, I know how bad it is. The Democrats are worse. I've run into this in my own life.
Mhm.
You know, Republican
Absolutely.
friends of mine was said to me in 2016, Hillary, I can't. She's so much worse. How is she worse? She's just worse. Okay. And so you were immune to that, clearly. What can Democrats do to get over that hurdle? Is there something that's within our control, or are we up against such a media machine, Fox News et al., that it's impossible?
I'm torn on this because I feel like it is very hard. It's extremely hard. And I do sometimes wonder how that ever turns around with just the way the media, and now we see more of right wing sort of takeover of even legacy media, which is almost hard to believe is even possible. But anyway, I think though that it seems to me like every trend eventually comes to an end. And this is a trend. I think that it doesn't mean that you won't have MAGA. I think that MAGA now that we know how big that crowd is, I think it's out there. But I don't think that means that Democrats are just done and that's it. I think that, and this is where I say I'm torn, because I feel like Democrats should be allowed to be Democrats. You know what I mean? We should be allowed to support the things that we believe in and to support the groups that have historically been oppressed or who are currently suffering as a result of the current administration and all of that. I don't think that Democrats should become diet Republicans, you know what I mean? Which I think is tough. But I think that I work with Marcus Flowers. He ran years ago for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene down in Georgia. And his thing is just, you got to get out there and knock on doors. That it's getting back to being just regular people again in a lot of ways that I think we got a little bit, maybe Democrats maybe got a little bit too, I hate to use the word elitist because I always feel like that's something MAGA would say. But I think that's the only word that I can really use here that suffices. I think that people think that Democrats they're better than them and they care about stupid issues and all. And because like you, I saw that happen with people I knew. I'm like, oh, the Democrats, they're terrible. Oh, they're just awful. All they care about is, and they name some small thing like the trans rights thing seems to be a big thing. And and there you have the thing, because there's nothing wrong with supporting that. And I don't think Democrats should like back down on supporting people's rights. But I think the problem was that it became, and the Republicans allowed it or made it, and the Democrats kind of allowed it to become an issue that was just far above, beyond what it should have been. So it's like things like that, being able to just talk regular to people again. I know that sounds basic, but like even if Kamala had gone on some of and I loved Kamala Harris. I thought she was fantastic. But if she had gone on maybe some of these other podcasts, or if she had gone into spaces where maybe it would have been a little bit more challenging, maybe that would have helped a little bit. Like that kind of stuff. That's kind of what I see is the only way to fight back.
Yeah, it was one of the things that you wrote your article as a semi-response to the Democratic autopsy. It's, well,
Yeah.
here's another autopsy for you.
Yeah.
What about this failure? And one of the principal flaws of the Democrats' ill-fated autopsy was that it did put a little bit too much on tactics. And should we have gone on the Joe Rogan podcast? To me, the blueprint data coming right immediately November 9th, right after the election. Blueprint is a Dem progressive leaning polling firm.
Mhm.
And they just put their finger right on it. It's, come on, guys. It was prices, immigration, and they thought Kamala was too woke. And most of that was because of the trans issue. And
Absolutely.
and there's only so much, and Jim Williams agrees with this, like there's only so much that Kamala could do with the cards she was dealt. That's about party brand and about being part of the Biden administration during a period where people were feeling a lot of economic pain and they just weren't buying it. It didn't matter that Biden pivoted on the border in 2024 and had more deportations than Trump did in 2025. It doesn't matter. It was baked into the cake at that point. It is what it is. I happen to be one of the Democrats who thinks we actually do need to change the brand a little bit. We need to get out of this mode of scolding people. Oh, you didn't get the pronouns right. That means you're a bigot. Off to hell with you.
No, I agree with that.
I think we learned from the Human Rights Campaign, which I just smacked them a little bit, and now I'm going to praise them. But we learned from them in the 2000s that there's a much more effective approach to going to people. It's, let's meet you where you are. You're able to come this far? Awesome. I'm so pleased that we agreed this far. Let's see if you can come a little further, but where you are is great. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. Does that cohere into a strategy? No, it's just a gut reaction. Let's talk about something that does cohere, though. You have been motivated to start a brand new Substack publication. I don't know why you're doing this. This seems terrible. Everyone has a Substack nowadays. You feel like you need to have more than one. Don't you think you're already taking up too much of your time on Substack?
Yeah, I probably am. But I look at this more as like something that will start on Substack and hopefully become something more. I'm like, sorry, I'm like reading the chat and I just love to see
it's so distracting, but I love that.
No, but it's so good, right?
Yeah, I love the live stuff.
And I saw someone say, no, it wasn't Kamala's fault. And I'm not even saying it was. I just want to make it clear. I'm not saying it was Kamala's fault. I think like what you were saying, there were things baked into the cake. Just to return to this real quickly. There were things baked into the cake. Yeah. She had a very short time to do something. And I'm certainly not blaming her. I just think that maybe if she had gotten her message, which was actually very good in places where it was not being heard, it could have helped. But I really appreciated Harris and what she did.
Yeah, people want to read. Talking about spending too much time on Substack, which I do as well, by the way. People should read the postmortem from Rob Flaherty, the deputy campaign manager for Harris, which I think is very clear-eyed, much better than the Dem autopsy. It basically says, look, we had some missteps. People can quibble. We had, again, that highly confident, fairly good internal polling evidence about what was working, what's not. People can come in and Monday morning quarterback and said, oh, you should have said this instead of saying this. They have a lot of research to back up. Like that wouldn't have necessarily got us further ahead. So, like, again, I don't think this was necessarily a Kamala Harris execution problem. I don't think it's a Kamala Harris personality problem. She seems lovely.
Yeah, I think she's great.
I would both enjoy her as our president and enjoy having a beer with her if I drank beer. So no problem there. I think she was weighted down with the collective brand issues that we were running into, along with a media that was still somehow not learning the lessons of 2016. But anyway.
Exactly.
But I wanted to get a little bit to your new project.
So yes, I'm sorry.
I teased that at the top, that if there's hope, it lies in the fact that we've just gone through a generation that's been uniquely destructive. And uniquely has come to a bad Game of Thrones-esque ending for all of their projects. It's like none of them occupied the throne, and it turned out they were all monsters in the end. It's been pretty rough. And you seem to be wanting to make the case that things are going to fundamentally change as my generation. I don't know. You look younger than I am, but I'm Gen X. So
Oh,
like,
I'm Gen X. Yeah.
oh, you look like you're at least Y, if not Z.
That's very sweet.
So
I have a Gen Z daughter.
there you go. All right. So as now leadership passes to these other generations, things are fundamentally going to change. Do you really believe that? Do you think something is going to change? And if so, what?
This is it's what I said earlier. It's not going to stay like this forever. It's hard to believe, but something will change. For one thing, the baby boomers and the silent generation, because they're still around, some of them too, are going to exit the scene, right? They're going to be gone. That's going to be it. And it's going to be left to Gen X, millennials, and who I refer to as Gen Y, and then Gen Z, right? And some people like to group Gen X with, I'm like right in the middle of Gen X. I was 72 baby. So I'm like right there in the middle of Gen X. Some people like to tie Gen X in, just throw them off with the boomers. But no, the youngest Gen Xers are only in their late 40s. And that's still very much in prime time. So the Gen Xers are going to be around, obviously millennials, and of course Gen Z's coming up. So
Here's a shorthand for you that you might want to
yes,
adopt on your Substack,
yeah,
probably right out of the mouth of your daughter and mine as well. We're all Unk. Let's just go with that as a shorthand. Unk generation is about to take over. Now what?
you go. Okay, good. I like that. So now what happens? And so one of the things I've learned working in this space is that we just literally can't wait for the people we think are the leaders and all to do this. Literally, we have to do it ourselves, just as us, just regular people out here. The only way anything's going to happen is if we really fix this ourselves. That's the way I look at it. And so I just want to, no offense to the older generations, but I think it's time that the three of us, our three generations down, we need to sit here and really start thinking about all the different problems that the other ones never solved, and that we now find ourselves in such a big problem because of it, with just so many of them, right? Or they solved them and someone else undid them. You know what I mean? And because it went back and forth volleying just between politicians. And certainly our generation, we're kind of small, Gen X compared to the others, but we've been around for a while too. But so I'm certainly not taking, we bear some responsibility for this stuff too. But I also just don't think that these were the fights that we started. It's more like these are the fights that we inherited and kind of kept going with, unfortunately. And so now it's time to just not look at it anymore as red and blue, because I just think that we need to actually just take a look at all of these different issues that we face as a country, and look at them, and with new ones coming in, AI and all of that, when we already still haven't solved other things, and just look at them from a generational perspective instead of a left-right perspective. And okay, how is this going to affect this generation? What are the primary needs that they have? What are the primary concerns that we have? Like Social Security is a big one for people our age. That's going to be potentially insolvent in 6 years or something like that, right? Supposedly. So
Yeah, I want to pick up on that thread in a second, but finish your thought.
yeah, so like for us, that might be the big thing. For Gen Z, like they've dealt with gun violence to an extreme degree, mass shootings and things that we didn't deal with, and climate issues, and they're going to have to deal with things that down the road we're not going to be around for anymore, and that they're still dealing with then. And then millennials, they have so much debt, and now you have AI coming in, and what's that going to do to jobs? And there's so much out there that's just not getting addressed because we're all hung up on the red and blue fights, and it's just where we've gotten. It's the legacy of the groups that you were talking about, the 1946 babies. And so we have to figure this all out, and I'm just like not waiting around anymore for just like the people I thought were going to lead us out of this. I really just think that like regular people need to figure this out. I really do. I just think that's where we're at now.
I want to give, first of all, a shout out to the comment here from Michelle Freytag. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Michelle, I probably mispronounce your name every time you pop a comment up, so I owe you 50 apologies. But Michelle's making this point that just in terms of voting behavior, young voters, the Gen Zegals, didn't really get it done this last time.
Not.
On the other hand, the boomers were largely on Kamala's side. Now, I think there's a little bit, Michelle, I'll just build, this is a friendly amendment to your comment. I think part of what you're seeing there also has to do with education level. This is just me, just a layer of added analysis and a suggestion. One of the principal divides that's cropped up in the last 10 years in American politics, and the fundamental change that pollsters have had to make in their work, is accounting for education level in their results. And of course, what you tend to see with boomers is higher educational attainment. They're a relatively more educated and relatively higher information set of voters than younger voters. And they broke for Harris by about 6 points, whereas low information voters broke for Trump by about 19 points. So there's a little bit of cross currents in your data. But Michelle, your point is well taken, that I don't think it's your intent here to, as John Harris did in his Politico piece, say, the boomers really fucked us here. It's all their fault. I don't think that's your argument. It's that the younger generations have inherited a world that looks fundamentally different to them. And I'll pick one of the policy issues that you just mentioned, AI. There's been a rash of commencement speakers getting booed off the stage as they start extolling the wonders of AI.
Yeah.
Turns out that people who are 22 see AI very differently than people in our generation who are reaping a lot of financial benefits and, oh, this is really nifty. This is everything that the computer could do on Star Trek. I love this. Young people are like, I'm not going to have a job, so this is not great. Is that one of the issues where you're looking to delve into and you see a fundamental potential for a generational change?
Absolutely, right. And that's why I want to look at it from a generational lens, because even as you just go through life and you get to be like a certain age, you get, well, wow, this is not how I felt about this back then, because I was thinking about what I needed at that time. I needed to buy a house. I was going to have kids. And now I'm at the other end, further down from that point in my life. But now you have to start thinking about, really seriously thinking about retirement and all of those things. And so it's definitely something we need to focus on as people in certain age groups, as opposed to as red and blue. And I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all with what a lot of the people are saying here. I've been very disappointed with my generation, much like some of the commenters are, and I do think that there's a little difference, or at least it feels that way to me from the different data points I've seen, that the older Gen Xers tended to be more Trumpy, and the younger, it kind of depends on when you grew up. If you kind of came of age during the 80s, you voted a little differently than if you came of age during the 90s, right?
Do you have any indications that are maybe on screen about which block you fall into? Oh, wait. Yes, you do. Yes. Like you, I identify more with the 80s than, say, the 90s.
And it's funny because, like we were growing up during Reagan, right? So that was such a conservative time. Everything was very USA, whereas the 90s wasn't so much like that. And yet it was a much more, to me, because by then you had the Cold War ended. It was a much more, I think the 80s were very rah America, but the 90s were really much more positive in a sense, right? It seemed, the end of history and all that. This is all good. When the economy was really booming by then, you had the internet and all of that. It wasn't really till the 2000s that everything started to just go down the toilet, it felt, right? So, but that also created a situation where what were the things we were fighting about then, like in the late 90s? Oh, whether Clinton was doing something in the Oval Office with whatever. It was like, it almost became, we don't have anything else bigger to worry about, so this is what we're going to worry about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it kind of got a little strange there at that point, I think, starting in the late 90s. And then, of course, you had 9/11, and then it sort of changed everything, and it just created a whole path towards everything that we've seen. But I just think that if we look at it as, if we try to tease ourselves away from the way we think politically or on a partisan level, because half the country are independents anyway, registered independents. Now, they probably have a lean right or left, but they are not necessarily committed to either party. So if you're not looking at it from that direction, if you're not looking at it as red or blue, what is it about where you're at in life what is it about this topic or this issue that is going to impact you? And then thinking about it from there, rather than thinking about it in a partisan way.
Let me give you one that I think is ripe for fundamental change. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we may be forced into having it happen. And this may become like the rug in The Big Lebowski that ties the whole room together. I think we're going to have a reckoning on entitlement programs. It's not top of mind right now, but you alluded to Social Security. One of the weird underreported things that I think is going to surface itself as a major campaign issue after Labor Day is the
Mhm.
fact that this next class of US senators that we're going to elect in 2026 will be the first sitting US senators to have Social Security run out of money during their term of office. The next president
Yeah.
that we elect, we can say the same thing of him or her. And that is an issue that we're going to have to grapple with. The long term, I had Jessica Riedel, who is like you, a former Republican. I suppose now she's an independent, but for a long time was at the Manhattan Institute. You
Oh,
can't get
sure.
more
Yes.
conservative
Mhm,
than that,
mhm,
formerly
mhm.
Brian Riedel. And
Yes. Yeah.
and
I'm familiar with her.
she was pointing out on the show like the fundamental thing that people just haven't wrapped their brains around because the numbers are so large are that Social Security has a 30-year liability on the order of $70 trillion. Medicare has a 30-year liability on the order of $103 trillion.
Oh,
We're talking about many, many multiples of American GDP.
yeah.
We're talking about an inability to pay full benefits within 6 years, having to cut back to at current levels 80% of benefits. That's going to happen within the term of a Senator Collins or Plattner or Husted or Brown.
Yeah.
That's an issue that should be on the ballot right now. And polling consistently shows that younger generations do not believe that these programs will be there
No.
for them. And that's on top of the fact, now I'm on my soapbox, but I will get down in just a second. I wrote an article that got a lot of blowback to me, and I'm sorry. I will apologize to the seniors who are in the audience right now. Among them is my mother. I'm not trying to insult our senior Americans, okay? I'm not. But America is a gerontocracy, not in the sense that our leaders are old. That's kind of like the surface story. That's what everyone misses. In the sense that we devote a disproportionate share of our societal resources to the elders. 40% of our budget goes ultimately to elder Americans, even though they represent only 17% of our population. 1/6 of America's children live in poverty. What a massive skewing of our societal resources toward the very old as opposed to the very young.
Yeah.
And again, I believe in Social Security. We lifted a tremendous number of seniors out of poverty. Senior poverty levels are below 10%, and that's because of Social Security. I think Medicare is an incredibly effective program, and I'm not totally against the idea, we can't get there from here, of a Medicare for all.
Right.
So it's not that the programs themselves are bad, and it's not that I undervalue elder Americans. It's that I think there's a real potential for you to explore in your new Substack this incredibly important shift that's going to happen. We're going to have to reskew or unskew the allocation of our entire society's resources back in proportion to the people that are living in it and away from this gerontocracy focus that we've built up because of the power of senior voters. All right, I'll turn it over to you. I'm off my soapbox, but I think this is going to be, you're occupying incredibly important political space.
No, I thank you for that. And I couldn't agree with you. I'm on the same soapbox as you with that when it comes to that. And I agree, Michelle. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I always had a soft
Sorry.
spot, by the way, for Clinton as well.
No,
He was like part of my political awakening as a kid.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
come
no,
on.
and I totally agree. And I'm not. And one of the things about this piece that I'm writing, and one of the rules is the we're not. It's not about bashing who came before us, right? Everybody's human. People make mistakes. It's not just going to be like, yeah, an okay boomer type thing. That isn't my goal with this. My goal is just to be completely radically forward looking. Look, this is what we've got. Here's where we are. Let's start looking at this stuff because some of it, you're like close to my age, then I assume. I remember, Al Gore years ago with the lockbox and all talking about these things years, just 25 years ago, right? So these are not new problems. It's just that maybe we're just getting stuck in the same back and forth arguments. And I find that data that you just shared very interesting because I wasn't even aware of those numbers, that they were that significant. And I also agree that it's not that we have any issues with older people at all, but there has to be a better way to do this so that the future, the younger generations are also benefiting from the resources of society that we're not just essentially farming it all out to those above us, but we're also looking at a time for that to happen, right? For us to figure that stuff out. So, Social Security is actually one, and entitlements more generally, is something that I included as one of the top things that let's start talking about because it's not, while we're having all the other arguments, and I'm not saying those things aren't important too, but this is something that's going to really impact people's lives dramatically. And it's not, it should be being talked about because of what you said. These senators will be the first that are going to have to actually deal with it becoming an insolvent fund, but it's not. And it's because we're still stuck fighting over the same kind of, I don't want to seem totally idealistic. Look, I get it that none of this stuff is easy, but I just think there's got to be a way to do it where we can talk about it without it being all just look at the comments, right? The immediate thing is like, no, this guy was good, this guy was bad, this guy, and that's not even my point, is to say that they were, I think most people do have decent intentions and they go in and there's just unexpected consequences. And that's where we are now. Maybe not everybody goes in with good intentions. We know certain people in office right now aren't. Lift the cap. Right. There you go. There's a very simple fix for Social Security, right? You just lift the cap. It's at what was like 185,000 or something like that, right? Right now, I think.
It only
Yes,
it only
Bonnie,
gets
it
you
is
a
an
small
entitlement you paid for.
right.
Exactly.
Although, look, I'm going to go ahead and alienate a part of the audience. Oh boy, I love this. You know what? I'm going to keep this. I'm going to keep this super short. I'm going to keep it super, super short. I agree with you, Bonnie, that I'm using that as a term of art and entitlement programs. It's not totally a creation of Republicans. It was a technical term that became a political term. And I agree, it has bad connotations because there's nothing worse than being called entitled, right? And it's insulting. So I'm with you on that. I do want to say that if we are going to address Social Security, I'll leave Medicare aside, which is a bigger problem and a lot more complex. If we're going to address Social Security, then I will tell you that it's going to require a mindset shift. People are going to have to start thinking of it correctly as insurance, not a savings plan. Bonnie, you paid into it. So am I. I've paid into it. I've had my 30 highest quarters of earnings. My mother, who currently relies on it, paid into it. We're all paying into it. We're all funding it. But we're funding it as insurance. Mm-hmm. We can't expect it's insurance against being poor when you're older. And we can't expect that it is going to be like a savings account where you get back the money that you paid in. That's not how it functions. It is. By that logic, we should all set fire to our houses tomorrow to get back all the insurance payments that we put in against fire. Great point. The reason we need this mindset shift is that something has to give. We're going to have to cut down to 80% of current benefits in 6 years if nothing else changes. Right. Lifting the cap would help, but it doesn't get you all the way there. And I will point out what Jessica pointed out on my show a month ago, which is, okay, but you're making a choice there because now there's a total amount of tax dollars that you can collect. And you're taking from that total pot and you're putting it toward this need. You're putting it toward Social Security. And that's fine. That's a policy choice. But it means that we're continuing to spend the same amount on a sector of society that's already getting 40% of our resources. And we might want to have an honest conversation about that. And I'm not really trying to alienate people. I'm just trying to be very honest about this, that if we didn't have such broken politics, we'd be able to talk about these things in a forthright way. Okay. All right. Let's, I know we have to wind down in just a second, but lay this out just before we all go. What are people going to get when they subscribe, which they hopefully will, and I'm going to pop it right onto a banner right now. When they subscribe to your new Substack, xyzpolitics.substack.com, what are they going to get?
So the idea is that we will have a topic every week that we will focus on. Some of it will be related to something that's maybe newsworthy, something that maybe Congress is debating or whatever. But then ultimately the goal is for us people, regular people, readers, just it's not about important names or important people or leaders that we already know. We're going to talk these things out. There will be a beginning of the week. We'll be talking about what is the topic. Here's what some people say about it. Here's where things stand congressionally. Tax the rich. That's an opinion, right? And I don't necessarily disagree with. But and then we're gonna want some feedback. We want to know where people stand on these issues. And then by the end of the week, we'll start to form some, I don't want to say consensus. I really don't want this to feel like kumbaya. We're all going to find common ground. We might not find common ground, but at least we could say, okay, here's the things that we need for this generation to benefit from this particular policy or whatever it is, right? And then the ultimate goal of this, honestly, is to give this data to our representatives, to our congresspeople, to people who are running, to candidates, to just be not as a money-making thing. This is not a commercial thing. This is really just, I intend for it to be free. People just participate in it as a way of, okay, let's talk about this stuff. And then I'm hoping that we can eventually have lives and stuff where we can bring people on to talk about these subjects that really know about this. And because I think a lot of people just don't even know necessarily about this. They don't know that data that you just said. And it's not because they're stupid and it's not because they don't pay attention. It's just because we're caught up in so many other things. And so I just feel like, look, this is going to happen, like we just said, with Social Security. Within 6 years, this is a serious problem. It's not something we can keep putting off. So we have to kind of do two things. We have to work on trying to save our democracy from a genuine threat right now. But we also have to be thinking about what comes next, because there has to be a next. There will be a next. And I just think we regular people out there need to kind of start thinking about how we want to define it.
Let me see if I can tie a couple of threads together here in what you just said. First of all, I'm sorry that by putting the comments up on the screen, it ends up rendering you like Tim Allen's character in Home Improvement, where you're just looking over the fence like this. But I thought it was important because it really rhymed with what you were saying, because there was a robust conversation happening here in the chat from people like Tree McGreen 714 and the Cynthia Rice and Debriana Mancini. I'm happily mispronouncing all of your names. You can call me whatever the heck you want out there. I'm sorry. But the point is, there was a robust conversation going on that I thought was excellent and interesting. And by the way, a lot of the people in the chat, I know a little something about them, and they're people with significant economic and political expertise. And Michelle sums it up beautifully right here. And I think what you're offering here on your Substack is the idea that people are going to be able to have, I put out some honest takes of my own. People weren't offended by them, but I'm just trying to say, look, this is what I see. This is what the numbers tell me. I spent a career in government, in working in economics. This is what I'm seeing. Let's talk it out, and let's get rid of the political culture that we've been suffering through these many years now. And so, just to bring this around, I promised at the beginning that there was the potential turn toward hope. And without throwing boomers under the bus, I do think there is. I think that's what ultimately your new Substack is about, is younger generations do fundamentally have the opportunity to take on politics in a different way. They don't have to keep doing it the same damn way. They don't have to look at the choice of an insurrectionist mega moron and a clown and a scam artist versus, but Hillary Clinton, I don't know. We don't have to play that game anymore. And increasingly, what younger generations are showing is they're not. They're open to, Mom, Donnie says he's a democratic socialist. I don't really care about the label. I kind of want to afford my rent. Okay. Right. That is an opportunity that's being presented to all of us. So I splashed up your new Substack URL. I'm going to put mine up as well as we wrap this up. We're on the Substack belonging to Marcus Flowers. We're on your Substack. We're on my Substack. So I hope people will do a lot of cross-subscribing here. It helps all of us tremendously. And Melissa, best of luck in your new project. Really looking forward to seeing it spool out. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. And hopefully when this takes off, you can come on my show for XYZ and we can talk.
Let's do it.
I love it.
You know what? Nothing better than two Gen Xers telling the younger generations how to conduct their business. Listen, you woke millennials, let me tell you something. Don't make me come down there. It's my hacky sack now. Okay.
You don't know how we grew up and how hard it was back
then. That's right. I was at Michael Jackson's victory tour when Melissa, thanks so much. And another outstanding, boy, this is a great Substack guest. It's one of the stone cold experts on what's happening on campaigns in politics with AI. It's truly fascinating stuff. We're getting into all that next week. That's a teaser. Please show up for it. And in the meantime, hopefully as this war with Iran winds down to some kind of a close, and as we all take some measure of joy in the World Cup in the next week, stay safe, be well. See you next week.